Everyone, MLive's Brendan Quinn here alongside Michigan football beat writer Nick Baumgardner following Jim Harbaugh's weekly press conference. Nick, as anyone who watches a Jim Harbaugh press conference knows, regardless of what's asked, Jim Harbaugh talks about what Jim Harbaugh wants to talk about. In this case, this week, coming off some controversies, I guess we can call it, over officiating in the last game. Well, when
misunderstandings or disagreements.
But when the head coach gets up in his post-game press conference and says, "I am offended by that call," then he's creating his own controversy.
Creating himself, sure.
So, and today, I'd say Jim Harbaugh spent nearly half of his press conference talking about officiating, long, drawn-out answers. Over and over again saying that there needs to be clarity in the rule book, especially related to targeting and this intent to deceive penalty, which has now gone from no one ever heard of it to everyone's talking about it. So
I think he was,
what's your take?
Well, I think he was extra upset about the intent to deceive thing for two reasons. One, I think he was personally offended that they were claiming that he was trying to break rules without getting caught. That bothered him, because he says he takes his sportsmanship to the high, or whatever. He really takes great pride in sportsmanship. So that was one. And the other part, and I didn't bother asking up again because this play already happened, but I think he'd said that he called the rule office weeks ago for an explanation on that play, because obviously they probably put it into their package. He wanted to know if it was something they could run, and gathering that basically he was told, yeah, that sounds fine, and then when it happened, it was, no, now it's not fine. And so I think that his gripe is probably the same as every other coach's gripe in the country, and we see it. It seems like this is a building thing here in college football. We're seeing, and Michigan didn't lose a game because of officiating on Saturday. They won by, it was 49-16. Yes. They haven't really lost a game on one call. They haven't lost a game on one call all year. The loss to Michigan State wasn't an officiating blunder. So some teams, though, have lost games on officiating blunders, and we're seeing this now.
Unless Joe Bolden was going to block 5 guys on that punt by himself in the Michigan State game, but no.
But in any event, what we're seeing here is we're seeing inconsistencies at the end of games, and we're seeing inconsistencies in the moment. Targeting is another one where guys are getting tossed out of the game. It's being called more and more frequent now, and no one knows what it is. And so I think that his complaints, gripes, whatever, his offended moments, I think that's him just trying to use a platform to voice a concern that I think a lot of coaches have, that officials, number one, have a really difficult job. Number two, in college football, they're not held accountable. And I think that is ultimately the bigger, maybe the deep layered issue. Because I heard somebody now we're going off topic, whatever. I heard somebody a couple weeks ago say, it was a coach, and I can't remember who it was, it said, I have to come up here and talk to you people, media, after every game.
Yeah.
Why don't they have to come in here and talk to you people after every game the same way? Pretty good question.
Valid.
And I think ultimately that ends up being a big gripe by a lot of coaches, is that I have to go face the firing squad every day. You cause and sometimes determine the outcome of a game, and then you run out of the building.
No one even knows their names.
And and you're out of the building before my team even leaves the field. You run out of there as fast as you can. And I think that something eventually has to be done with officiating in terms of they have to be held accountable, more accountable, and there has to be some more clarity on what is a penalty and what's not, and vice versa. Anyway, that's the end of that.
Right. Okay. On to far more actual pressing things. Obviously, beyond, and this is partially because Michigan's playing a winless in the league Indiana team this week, but what else is happening in the league is far more interesting, really, I think, than the build-up to a game between Michigan and Indiana. The Michigan State-Ohio State situation completely opens the door for them. What was before seemed like kind of a bit of a lost cause is now very much on the table. Guys were asked about it. What'd you take away?
Yeah, I mean, they were aware of what was going on. They were aware of the situation. Most of them watched the end of that Michigan State game, and I think they were fully aware that the back door was cracked open, and then that one kicked it open a little bit more. Basically the idea now is that Michigan has to hope that Michigan State loses another game. I think the obvious choice there would be they lose to Ohio State, because I'm not sure they're going to lose to, I think, Penn State or Maryland, I believe they have, so we'll probably beat those teams. But that's the one that everyone looks at, is if Ohio State can beat Michigan State, or if Michigan State loses to anybody else. And if Michigan wins out, then Michigan's going to Indianapolis. And I think that they're fully aware that that backdoor entry to Indianapolis is now a little easier, a lot easier, frankly. And that was something I think that's been in the back of their heads for most of the season, but I think, they were certainly paying attention to it, watching it.
Sure.
And I'm sure we'll be doing the same thing in 2 weeks. But at the same time, neither one of these next two games are gimmies, especially being on the road, and I think they understand that as well.
Yeah, there was the company answer of
But that's also a real
we have to
answer
worry
because,
about Indiana and all
because they
that
could lose
stuff.
to both teams. If
Sure.
they play the way they did on the road against Minnesota in either of these next two games, they could lose either one of them. Because I think Penn State at home, it's not going to be at night, but at home in November is a difficult environment no matter how bad they look. Indiana has been close all month. They've lost 5 in a row, but they've been close just about every time. They look sort of due. So if you're not on your tip-top, game here, then you could lose to either one of those teams,
Right.
and then this whole thing goes up in smoke.
I did find it interesting, though, that Jim Harbaugh didn't duck the question either. He said, I'm sure they're aware of it, and
Yeah,
if
and
they
if they're not,
aren't,
we'll make them aware.
we'll make them aware. A lot of coaches would have
Oh,
said,
I'm sure they'll talk about it, yeah.
we have 3 games and da-da-da-da. But no, the door very much is open. So that'll be it for today. Make sure you join us on Wednesday for this week's edition of the Wolverine Beat, our weekly podcast, available on iTunes and on the site as well. So that'll do it. For Nick, I'm Brendan. Thanks for watching.